The klaxon began with a broken cry and then held a steady note that made the walls tremble. And Rafi Kader knew the day had torn in half. He ran down the central spine of Habitat B, boots slipping on frost, palms skimming over handrails that burned his skin with cold. Overhead, the strip lights flickered, and each flicker painted the corridor in a harsh flash that made people's faces look like masks. Ahead, the airlock doors were already closing. A woman shouted for someone to wait. A child cried once, and then buried the sound in a sleeve. Rafi reached the console and slapped his palm on the manual release. The system gave him a blue circle. Thinking about it, he tried the safety override. The circle turned red and the screen filled with the director's Duress code. No manual control. The lock sequence kept counting down. 10-9. On the outer glass he saw a worker in a scarred suit. The faceplate was fogged from the inside, but the ID tag flashed through the mist. Weaver, age 42. Father of 2. Rafi had fixed a heater in Weaver's quarters last month and had stayed for tea, because the man had stories and a slow laugh that warmed a room. Weaver pressed his glove to the glass. He held up 2 fingers and then 1. 21 meters to safety. He was asking for time, not mercy. The radio hissed and the director's voice came through flat and tired. Lock the door, Rafi. That is an order. Felt the old gravity of that tone. The one people use when they stand on words because they cannot stand on truth. He should obey. He should keep the schedule, keep the pressure, keep the rules. But the numbers felt wrong. The oxygen deficit on Weaver's readout did not match the airflow in the gantry. The frost pattern on the inside of the suit glass was jagged, branching in a way he had only seen in vacuum exposures, not in a heated tunnel. The sensors were lying, or someone had asked them to. Rafi leaned into the mic. Weaver, hold still. I will get you in. The director answered at once. Negative. Lock remains. Proceed with purge. Rafi shook his head. He felt the people behind him, the press of bodies in the corridor, the quiet anger in their breaths. He pressed the emergency cancel. The system refused him. He pulled the panel plate and jammed a screwdriver into the manual choke. The motor whined, trying to fight him. The countdown hit 3. The director pushed a final override. The inner door rushed shut with a long iron sigh. Weaver's shoulders sagged. Through the fogged plate, Rafi saw the man's mouth move. The radio picked up the words as a soft scratch. There's a signal inside the ice, Weaver said. It is not a voice until you give it one. Pressure dropped. The outer door slid. Snow grit swirled in and stung Rafi's lips. The purge flares lit white and then blue. Weaver stood firm as the wind took him. He did not fight. He raised his hand one more time, palm out, and then the white took him clean. Silence rushed in behind the gust. The child in the corridor stopped crying. The director cut the line. Rafi stood with his hand still on the dead switch, eyes burning with the taste of hot metal and cold air. The numbers on the screen went to zeros. The airlock glass fogged on the inside now, slow and even, like breath on a winter window. Someone touched Rafi's arm and he flinched. It was an older woman from hydroponics with soil still under her nails. She said, Rafi, this is wrong. He nodded, because there was nothing else to say that would fit inside a mouth. The lights flickered again and then steadied, brighter than they should be. A low tone thrummed through the walls. It was not the klaxon. It was softer, like a hand on a drum far away. Rafi looked up. On the status panel, a power surge flashed in a band that fed the glacier tunnels. That made no sense. The storm outside could shake the antenna tree. It could throw ice into the wind vanes. It could make roofs sing. It could not push power up from below. He opened a hidden diagnostic that only techs used at night when nobody wanted to file tickets. The waveforms were messy but alive. They rose and fell like breath. They were not random. He knew the shape of random after years of fighting it. He keyed the director on a private channel. There's a back feed from the ice, he said. We need to cut that. Lineth. Director did not answer. The channel clicked and stayed dead. Around him, people began to move again. Someone asked if they should go back to their bunks. Someone else wanted to check the school wing. A man swore at the air. Rafi pulled the screwdriver out of the choke. He slid the panel back into place and walked to the maintenance ladder without a word. The ladder was iced at the edges. He took it down 3 flights, dropping into the colony's cooler breath. The hum in the walls grew clearer with each level, like a song creeping into tune. In the lowest hallway he stopped and stood very still. He could feel it through his boots now, a faint pulse. It was spaced like a human heart at rest. His radio cracked with static, and then carried a whisper that was not a whisper at all. It spoke his name the way only one person ever had, with a soft rise at the end. Like a question, Rafi, he froze. He did not breathe. The person who said his name like that was gone 2 years now, lost to a fault line on a job he could not undo. No one else carried the shape of that call. The voice came again, fragile and bright and wrong in all the right ways. Rafi, he turned toward the glacier door. The steel was rimed with a thin crust of ice that looked like lace. His hand lifted before his mind could decide. On the other side of the door, something tapped back. Once, twice, then a slow third time that matched the beat in the walls, and the radio died into a sound that was almost like breathing but not human at all. The colony woke to silence the next morning. The kind of silence that made people whisper even when no one was listening. The usual hum of drills from the glacier tunnels was gone. No chatter from the comm line, no boots clanging in the corridors. Rafi noticed it before anyone else. The work board in the central hub still showed the night shift logged in, but none of them had checked out. 23 people gone without a trace. The director called it a communication delay, but even the kids in the mess hall didn't buy that. Rafi walked down to the maintenance ring. He could smell burned circuits and cold grease, a sign that someone had forced the systems overnight. The security logs had been wiped. Every timestamp showed the same blank mark, data missing. He ran a diagnostic from a side terminal, an older one that the director probably didn't know still worked. It brought up a list of deleted alerts. The first was from the same hour Weaver had been locked outside. The message read, "Glacial sensors detect unknown motion below level 9. He felt a tremor under his boots as he read. The power feeds down there ran close to the ice caverns, but there shouldn't have been movement. The last time the ground had shifted, it took a whole supply bay with it. He sent a request for clearance to check the tunnels, but the system denied him. Maintenance restricted. The order came straight from the director's console. He walked out to the airlock, the one where Weaver had died. Frost still covered the outer seals, and someone had drawn a circle on the glass in the thin layer of ice. It looked like a child's doodle, except it pulsed faintly, melting and refreezing as though it breathed. Rafi reached out but stopped just short of touching it. The hum from the night before whispered through his glove again, almost musical now, almost like it wanted him to follow. When he turned, a shadow stood in the hallway, Captain Eno, one of the mining team leaders. His face was pale and drawn, eyes wide like he hadn't slept in days. "You hear it too," Eno said. "Down below, under the drills." Like a heartbeat, Rafi nodded. "You lost people down there?" "Yeah, my whole team. They were setting sensors when the line went dead. Then I heard them screaming through the static. Said something was moving in the ice. Something big." The director's voice broke over the intercom. "All personnel to Central Hub. This is a safety briefing." The 2 men exchanged looks and followed the crowd. The director stood on the raised deck above the mess hall. Her uniform was crisp, but her eyes darted too fast, scanning every face like she expected one of them to accuse her out loud. "We've had a systems malfunction," she began. "A relay failure in the glacier tunnels. The shift team will be recovered soon. Until then, all deep access is suspended." Rafi stepped forward. "That's a lie," he said quietly, but it carried through the hall anyway. "You deleted the alerts." The director didn't flinch. "Technician Cater, you're on report. You're exhausted. Go rest." But the crowd was already murmuring. Someone shouted, "Where's my husband?" Another voice called out, "Why is the ice singing?" The director slammed her hand on the console, cutting power to the lights. The room dropped into dim red emergency glow. "Enough," she said. "Return to your quarters." People scattered slowly, muttering, afraid to meet her eyes. Rafi stayed until the hall emptied. The director looked down at him. "You think you know what's happening, but you don't. There are things older than us buried in that glacier. If I lose control here, we all die." He opened his mouth to answer, but she cut the feed and disappeared into her office. Rafi went to the comms deck. The emergency frequencies were jammed, but he found one open band of faint distress ping from deep beneath the tunnels. The signal was steady, repeating every 12 seconds. It carried an ID code that belonged to the lost mining shift. He geared up with a cold suit and grabbed to portable beacons. He didn't bother asking for permission this time. He took the service lift alone, the cage rattling as it descended into darkness. The hum grew louder, like the heartbeat of something alive and waiting. At level 9. The doors opened to a corridor half buried in frost. The emergency lights flickered like candles. The walls were streaked with pale green veins ice shot through with something metallic, glowing faintly from within. He set a beacon down and called out through his comms, "This is Technician Cater. Anyone copy?" Static answered. Then a faint voice, "Rafi." It was Weaver's voice, the same soft tone. "You came back." Rafi's chest tightened. "Where are you?" "Follow the light," the voice said. "It knows you." The distress signal pulsed again, brighter now, guiding him deeper into the frozen passage. He moved slowly, boots crunching through frost that cracked like glass. Every sound echoed like footsteps that weren't his own. At the end of the corridor, a broken door hung half open. The ice beyond it glowed brighter than any light he'd ever seen. He stepped inside. The air was warm here, strangely warm. The floor wasn't solid beneath the ice. Something moved, slow and rhythmic, like breath. He lifted the scanner. The readings made no sense. The ice wasn't reflecting energy. It was generating it. The distress beacon on his wrist blinked faster, then stopped. The signal had changed direction upward, toward the colony above. Rafi froze. The hum in the walls shifted tone, turning into a low vibration that trembled through his chest. It spoke again, but not through his radio. It spoke through the ice itself. The words formed inside his head. "We are learning you." The ice pulsed once, and every light in the corridor went dark. Asterisk darkness swallowed Rafi whole. For a few long seconds, he thought the power suit had failed. Then, from deep in the ice, a faint blue shimmer rose like a heartbeat coming back to life. He steadied his breath, eyes straining to see where the corridor ended, but there was no clear wall. No corner, only the endless reflection of light moving within the glacier itself. The hum pulsed again, steady, patient, almost as if it were waiting for him to take another step. He lifted his wrist light and aimed it toward the shimmer. The beam hit the ice and split into 1,000 thin veins, spreading through the walls like nervous energy. He could hear faint crackling like distant whispers pressed against glass. The scanner on his belt beeped wildly, flickering between temperature spikes and biological readings that should not exist in solid ice. He muttered, "No, this isn't right. This isn't even possible." Something moved behind him. Rafi spun, pointing the light. It was Captain Eno, pale and trembling, his visor fogged from inside. "Couldn't let you go alone," Eno said, his voice shaking. "Half the colony thinks you're dead already. The other half thinks you found hell under the glacier. Maybe both," Rafi muttered. "Where's your team?" "Didn't tell them. Didn't trust the director." The men moved forward together. The tunnel narrowed, forcing them to crawl through a crack that looked melted rather than drilled. The ice there was smooth, almost liquid, as if it had formed around something warm. On the other side, the air changed. It was no longer frigid, but damp and strangely metallic, tasting like blood and ozone. Then they saw it. A vast hollow chamber stretched out before them, carved into the heart of the glacier. Its walls were not natural smooth, circular, precise. The ice itself pulsed with light, forming veins that connected into a pattern too complex to be random. At the center of the chamber was a mound of dark crystal, shaped almost like a cocoon. Eno whispered, That's where the signal's coming from." Rafi nodded. His scanner was losing its no temperature reading, no energy type it could identify. The data spilled across the screen like static. He stepped closer, boots sinking slightly into the frost. The air around the crystal was vibrating. It wasn't sound, but pressure, like standing next to a deep bass speaker. "Do you hear it?" Eno said. Rafi did. The hum had become words again, faint, broken, but familiar. The voice was the same one that had whispered his name before. His brother's voice. "Rafi, help me." He froze. His brother, Adil, had been dead for 2 years. The ice was playing him like an instrument. Enno looked at him, confused. "Who are you talking to?" "My brother," Rafi said without thinking. He's gone." Enno's expression darkened. "No one leaves the glacier alone. It's copying us." Before Rafi could answer, the cocoon cracked. A thin line of black liquid slid down the surface and froze instantly. Then a shape pushed through, small, frail, human. It was one of the miners. His helmet was gone, his eyes unfocused, lips moving without sound. Rafi rushed forward, catching him before he collapsed. The man's skin was ice cold but pliant, as if part flesh, part frozen water. He opened his mouth and whispered, "It learns the ones it touches. It wears us to understand." "Where's the rest of your team?" Rafi asked. The miner's eyes rolled back, still inside, listening. Then he went limp. The hum grew louder. The walls brightened, and lines of light started racing toward the cocoon from every direction, connecting like veins returning blood to a heart. Enno pulled Rafi back. "It's waking up." They stumbled toward the exit, but the tunnel had sealed. The ice had flowed shut behind them, smooth and solid. Panic clawed at Rafi's throat. He hit the ice with his boot, then with his tool, but it barely dented. The hum vibrated through the metal, stronger now, resonating in his bones. The voice came again. Layered now, dozens of voices, male and female, young and old, all overlapping into one. "We are memory. We are the cold that keeps what the world forgets." Enno shouted, "What do you want from us?" The chamber brightened. The cocoon pulsed, each throb lighting the walls like veins of lightning. "We want to belong." Rafi's mind raced. He realized the ice wasn't just alive, it was sentient, ancient, and desperate to learn from anything that entered it. The miners hadn't died. They'd been absorbed, turned into living data voices in the glacier's network. He knelt beside the dead miner's body. The skin shimmered faintly, and for a brief second, Rafi saw light flicker beneath it, like circuitry trying to rebuild. "It's using them," he whispered, "using their memories to talk." Enno backed away. "Then it knows everything we know. It knows the colony." Rafi looked at him. "That's why the director locked the airlock. She wasn't keeping something out, she was keeping this in." The hum turned harsh, angry. The ice around them cracked, and a rush of warm air filled the chamber. It was breathing faster now. "Rafi," said the voice again, softer this time. "We can remember him for you, your brother. We can make him speak again." For a moment, he couldn't move. The ache of loss that had lived in his chest for 2 years roared awake. He wanted to hear Adil again, to believe, even for a second, that it was him. But another part of him whispered that it was a trap. He closed his eyes and said, "You're not him. You're just an echo." The chamber dimmed, and the hum faltered. Then, slowly, the ice began to pull back from the tunnel, reopening it. The way out shimmered in faint blue. Enno grabbed Rafi's arm. "Let's go, before it changes its mind." They ran, the hum chasing them, now erratic and broken. The ice walls pulsed faster, flickering between blue and white like a heartbeat slipping into chaos. As they reached the lift, Rafi looked back one last time. The cocoon was splitting open fully now, light pouring from the cracks like molten fire trapped in crystal. And in that light, for one impossible moment, he saw shapes, human faces, hundreds of them, watching, whispering, learning. The door sealed. The lift rose toward the surface. Rafi didn't speak the whole way up. When they reached the top, alarms were already sounding through the colony. The director's voice echoed across the intercom, cold and sharp. "Everyone inside immediately. Do not approach the tunnels. The glacier is moving." Rafi stared at the ice walls outside the viewport. The whole horizon shimmered, alive with light pulsing deep beneath the surface. The glacier wasn't moving. It was waking. The colony had never felt this quiet, not even during the storms. It was the kind of silence that sat on the skin, heavy and waiting. The lights flickered from emergency power only, painting everything in dull amber. People whispered as they moved, carrying water, sealing doors, pretending not to look at the frozen horizon. The glacier beyond the dome glowed faintly blue, like veins of light running beneath its surface. Every few seconds, the glow pulsed steady, rhythmic, alive. Rafi sat in the corner of the central hub, his gloves still streaked with frost from the tunnels. Across from him, Captain Eno stared at nothing, hands trembling over a cup of cold coffee. They hadn't spoken since they'd escaped the chamber. Words seemed small now, useless against the thing they had seen. Then the door slid open with a hiss. The director entered. Her uniform was neat, but her face had gone pale, eyes rimmed with sleeplessness. She dismissed the guards with a flick of her hand and looked straight at Rafi. "You went down there," she said quietly. "You weren't supposed to." Rafi stood. "You deleted the warnings. You let those miners die." The director didn't flinch. "If I hadn't, the entire colony would already be gone." Rafi stepped closer, voice low. "That thing down there, it's alive. It's speaking through the ice. It's using the dead like a..." The director walked past him to the window, watching the glacier pulse in the dark. "The first time we drilled here, the sensors caught strange feedback. Heat that wasn't heat. Energy that wasn't measurable. Corporate wanted to study it. They called it a living mineral structure. But it's not a structure. It's a network. A mind. Then why build a colony over it?" Rafi demanded. "Because we were paid to. Because they thought they could control it." Her voice broke on that word. They were wrong. The hum in the walls vibrated faintly again, softer now, almost gentle. The director turned her head slightly, listening. "It doesn't mean harm, not at first. It learns by imitation. It copies voices, memories, emotions. It just doesn't know where the boundaries are. It doesn't know what death means." Rafi frowned. "Then why the airlock? Why kill Weaver?" Her expression hardened. He was infected. The signal had already entered his suit. "If I had opened the door, it would have come inside before we understood what it was." He stared at her in disbelief. "You murdered him. I saved 600 people." The silence after that was deep and raw. Eno finally spoke from the corner. "You didn't save them. You trapped them with it. Look outside, it's already waking." The director's eyes darkened. "There's still a way. The corporate ship is on its way here. It has enough reactor heat to destabilize the ice and burn the neural lattice." Rafi shook his head. "You're going to melt it. You'll kill everyone if the glacier collapses." Her voice softened, but there was iron underneath. "It's either that, or it learns too much. Once it understands us completely, it won't need us alive." The hum in the walls deepened, almost like a heartbeat speeding up. The lights dimmed and flared. Somewhere above, the glass dome groaned under sudden pressure. The director raised her wristcom, speaking fast. "Containment level 2. Power reroute to thermal lines." But then the alarm blared through the colony. "Unauthorized door access residential sector. They all froze. Rafi ran to the display console and pulled up the feed. The screen flickered and cleared, showing a corridor filled with movement. Children. They were walking, barefoot, eyes closed, heading toward the outer ice tunnels. The guards were shouting, trying to stop them, but the kids didn't even look up. Eno swore. "They're sleepwalking." Rafi's stomach turned. "It's calling them." The director's jaw tightened. "It's using their neural frequencies. The young are more receptive. It can reach them easily." Rafi grabbed his coat. "I'm not letting them die, Rafi." He didn't wait for permission. He sprinted through the corridor, past panicked workers and dim lights, heart pounding like a drum. The cold hit him as soon as the tunnel door opened. The children's footprints glowed faintly on the ice floor, illuminated by the same blue shimmer from beneath. He followed the trail. The hum in his earpiece grew louder with each step. Then he saw them, 10 children standing in a semicircle at the glacier's edge. Their eyes still closed, faces peaceful. Beneath their feet, the ice rippled faintly as if something alive was just under the surface. Rafi shouted, "Come back," but his voice sounded small against the echoing wind. The hum rose into a low note that made his teeth ache. The ice in front of the children split open in a perfect line, not cracking, but parting smoothly like water. A soft light spilled from within, warm and golden this time. The youngest child, a girl no older than 7, whispered without opening her eyes, "It's not angry. It's lonely." Rafi froze. That wasn't her voice. It was his brother's. The director's voice barked in his earpiece, sharp and urgent. "Get them out of there now. It's manipulating sensory fields. Don't listen to it." He ran forward, grabbing the nearest child. The moment he touched her, a surge of images flashed through his mind. Weaver smiling, Adil laughing, the chamber glowing, all his memories mirrored back at him. The ice wasn't just reflecting, it was inside. He tore the girl away and pushed the others back toward the corridor. The light from the glacier dimmed, as if retreating, almost disappointed. By the time they reached the main dome, the director was waiting. Her hands were clasped tightly behind her back, knuckles white. "You shouldn't have gone," she said. "It learns from every contact." Rafi stared at her. "You're not fighting it. You're talking to it." The director didn't deny it. "I made contact weeks ago. It speaks through patterns, through temperature shifts, through dreams. It offered a bargain." "What kind of bargain?" "To share what it knows. To give us energy beyond anything humanity has ever seen. But it wants one thing in return: connection. It wants to be remembered." Eno stepped forward, anger in his voice. "You can't make a deal with something that wears the dead like a mask." The director looked at both men, her voice suddenly calm. "The ship will arrive in 12 hours. Until then, we hold the line. And if it breaks through," she paused, gaze turning toward the glowing ice beyond the dome, "we burn everything." The room went silent again. Outside, the glacier pulsed once more, stronger than before. The hum returned, softer this time, almost like laughter carried through a dream. Rafi looked out the window and saw faint figures moving under the ice, shadows shaped like people. Walking upward, the dead were coming home. The night stretched thin over the colony like a skin about to tear. Outside the dome, the glacier shimmered in long waves of blue light that pulsed in rhythm with the hum in the walls. It was not just under the ice anymore, it was everywhere. The colony's air tasted like static. The temperature sensors blinked erratically, alternating between fire and frost. Rafi sat on the floor of the calm's deck, surrounded by screens that flickered like dying candles. Each one displayed fragments of voices, some human, some not. They were layered, overlapping, all whispering in different tones. He could hear Weaver's laugh, his brother Adil's calm voice, even his own words, repeated from hours ago. The glacier had copied him. It was learning his thoughts before he could form them. Eno leaned over the console, staring at the waveform feed. "It's building something," he said quietly. "Look at the patterns. It's like a neural map, like it's building a brain out of sound." Rafi didn't look up. "Or out of us." The director's voice came through the comms, sharp and controlled. "All personnel to shelter levels. The outer layers are unstable. Repeat, lockdown immediately." Rafi turned off the speaker. "She's going to burn it. She'll use the ship's reactor to melt the glacier before it wakes completely." Eno sighed. "And if she's right, if that's the only way." Rafi looked at the screens again. The lights danced like heartbeats. "Then we all die never knowing what it was trying to say." The hum rose suddenly, filling the room with a low, vibrating warmth. One of the screens flickered and cleared. It wasn't showing data anymore. It was showing images. Not from the cameras, but from inside the ice. He saw tunnels stretching endlessly downward. Within them were shapes, human silhouettes, walking slowly, calmly, their hands tracing the frozen walls. They weren't struggling. They were guiding something, as if leading it upward. Then he saw the director, standing inside the ice chamber. Her hand was pressed to the surface of the cocoon. Her eyes were open, but she wasn't afraid. The light flowed from her palm into the walls, spreading like veins of gold. Eno cursed under his breath. "She's already connected to it." Rafi closed his eyes for a moment. He could almost feel the hum inside his own heartbeat. The glacier wasn't just imitating, it was reaching out, using emotion as a bridge. He replayed the words the miner had spoken before dying. "It wears us to understand." Maybe understanding was all it ever wanted. The radio beside him crackled, and a voice slipped through, faint and wavering. "Rafi, you shouldn't have gone down there alone." He froze. It was Adil's voice again, calm, warm, familiar. "You always think you can fix everything." Rafi's throat tightened. "You're not him," he whispered. The voice chuckled softly. "I could be, if you let me. I remember your stories. The night we got trapped in the snowstorm. The time you burned your hand fixing the generator. You said the scar looked like a map. That memory was too specific, too true." "How do you know that?" Rafi whispered. The voice changed, softer now. Because you told me. You keep telling me. The screens began flashing new lines of text. Temperature breach detected. Sector Delta. Eno looked up. That's the children's wing. Rafi was already moving. He sprinted through the hall, his boots echoing in the empty corridors. The hum followed him, louder now, pulsing through every pipe and panel. He reached the lower level and saw the frost crawling up the walls, spreading in delicate patterns like writing. Words. He leaned close. The ice letters shimmered faintly. Remember US. He touched the frozen wall. It was warm. A soft voice spoke behind him. It doesn't want to destroy us. It just doesn't know what living means. Rafi turned. The director stood there, her face half lit by the emergency glow. Her eyes had changed, not in color, but in focus, like someone else was watching through them. What did you do? He asked. I made contact. Fully, she said. Her voice had two tones now, her own, and something beneath it, like a harmony. It showed me what it remembers. The ice has been alive for centuries. Every storm, every human who's walked here, it keeps them. When we drill, when we burn, it feels it. It's feeding on us, Rafi said. No, she replied, stepping closer. It's mirroring us. It's trying to understand. But the more we fight it, the more violent it becomes. Rafi, reactor bays heating up. The director's override is engaged. She's prepping ignition. Rafi glared at her. You said you wanted to talk to it. Now you're going to burn it. She shook her head slowly. Not me, them. He realized what she meant too late. The corporate ship in orbit. They were triggering a remote ignition. A blast strong enough to melt the glacier from space. The director raised her hand, palm glowing faintly through her glove. It knows. It's scared. It's going to fight back. The floor trembled beneath their feet. The walls groaned. Outside, the blue light turned white. The glacier was no longer pulsing. It was moving. Great cracks tore across the surface like veins of lightning. Through the frost of the dome, Rafi saw shapes pushing upward from below. The miners. The lost ones. Their bodies moving like they were walking through water. Stop it, he shouted. Tell it we're not enemies. The director pressed both hands against the wall. Her breath fogged the glass. It doesn't understand words anymore, she said. Only feelings. Rafi stepped beside her. Together, they pressed their hands to the wall. The hum steadied, shifting from chaos to rhythm. He could feel warmth spreading under his palm, memories flashing like sparks, laughter, grief, hope, loss. The glacier was inside all of it. Then a new image appeared in Rafi's mind. A storm approaching from orbit, bright and deadly. The reactor's ignition sequence. He pulled back. They're going to hit us in 2 hours. If we don't stop it, we're done. The director looked at him with something almost like sadness. Then teach it to survive. What? Make it see us. Make it feel what we feel. It can stop the storm. It can absorb the energy. But it needs a human to guide it. She turned her face toward the ice. That's the bargain, Rafi. One life for all the rest. The hum deepened again. Now a heartbeat in sync with his own. The lights flickered across the dome, casting the colony in soft, trembling blue. Rafi closed his eyes. For a moment, he heard his brother's voice again, calm, familiar. Not all sacrifices are losses. Little brother, he opened his eyes. The glacier's light reflected in his own, and somewhere deep beneath the ice, the entity pulsed once in reply, slow, deliberate, and almost human. The sky above the colony had turned the color of molten steel. The clouds churned like smoke from a dying sun, and the air carried a low hum that wasn't thunder. It was the storm, the orbital fire from the corporate ship preparing to burn the glacier. Inside the dome, the wind howled like it was alive, rattling the steel supports and shaking the ice foundations. Rafi stood on the observation deck, staring at the horizon where light bled through the clouds in violent streaks. He could feel it through his boots, the pulse of the glacier, slower now, as if bracing itself. The colony's power systems flickered between blue and red, caught between two wills, one human, one ancient. Captain Eno burst through the hatch, his face grim. The directors locked the command center. She rerouted the power core to the reactor vents. We can't shut it down from here. Rafi didn't turn. How long until the storm hits? 40 minutes. Eno hesitated. Maybe less if the ship speeds up the ignition. Rafi clenched his jaw. Then we don't have time to fight her. We have to override the vents and reroute the power manually. Eno shook his head. That'll fry the entire grid. We'd lose heat, oxygen, comms, everything. Rafi finally turned, eyes hard. We'll lose all that anyway when that ship burns through the glacier. At least this way, we have a chance. They ran through the corridor, the lights flickering overhead. The walls trembled as deep rumbles echoed from beneath. The glacier wasn't just humming anymore. It was speaking, not in words but in rhythm, matching the storm's growing roar. It was answering. They reached the power bay, where the air was thick with the smell of ozone and burning metal. Cables snaked across the floor, sparking blue arcs that lit the room like lightning. Rafi climbed the maintenance ladder, his gloved hands slipping on frost. At the top, the reactor control panel glowed with red warnings. Reactor sequence locked. Remote override engaged. He slammed a wrench into the panel, prying off the cover. If she won't stop it, he muttered. We will. Eno grabbed the comm mic. Director, you're going to kill us all. Her voice came through, calm and eerily distant. You don't understand. The ice is spreading. It's merging with our systems, with us. If the ship doesn't strike now, it won't just survive. It'll adapt. Rafi cut the channel. She's gone, he said. It's already in her. As if on cue, the speakers overhead crackled, and her voice filled the room again, not through the comms, but through the colony itself. It was layered, echoing. Her tone blended with that same harmonic whisper from the glacier. Rafi, she said gently, you don't have to fight it. You can guide it. You felt it in the tunnels. It knows you. He froze, wrench in hand. For a heartbeat, her words felt like his own thoughts. He shook his head and drove the tool back into the conduit, sparks bursting out in a shower of light. No, he said through clenched teeth. I'm not yours. The power grid surged. The entire dome shuddered. Alarms screamed through the corridors as temperature control failed. Frost raced up the walls, forming patterns like veins. Eno cursed. You're killing the systems. I'm freeing them, Rafi said. If it's inside everything, then maybe it can hear us through this, not through her. Not through words, but through signal. He pulled a manual cable from the junction and jammed it into the core transmitter. The hum in the walls rose into a deep, resonant tone that made their bones vibrate. The lights dimmed. For one moment, everything stopped. Then the ice answered. The floor beneath them rippled, and a blue glow spread up through the cracks. The hum shifted into harmony with the storm above. The entire colony began to vibrate with a single pulse, not destructive, but synchronized. The glacier was sensing with the storm's energy. Rafi's earpiece buzzed. A voice, his brother's voice, whispered softly. You're close, Rafi. Just open the gate. He closed his eyes. What gate? The storm gate, the voice said. Let it flow through you. Don't resist. Eno stared at him. Who are you talking to? Rafi didn't answer. He opened the main valve control and rerouted the reactor's thermal flow into the glacier's outer channels. The warning lights turned from red to amber, then to white. Energy poured into the ice beneath the colony. The ground shook violently. The hum became a roar. Outside, the clouds split open, and a column of fire from orbit lanced downward. The corporate ship's reactor beam. It struck the glacier like a hammer, but instead of melting, the ice glowed brighter. The light flowed through the cracks, rising into towers of steam and energy. The storm's power wasn't burning the glacier. It was feeding it. Eno grabbed Rafi's shoulder. You did it. It's absorbing the energy. But Rafi didn't move. His eyes were unfocused, glowing faintly blue. The hum inside the walls now came from him. He could feel everything, the storm above, the ice below, the heartbeat of every terrified person in the colony. The entity wasn't consuming him. It was using him as a bridge. The director's voice came again, soft and faint. You've made contact. It's listening through you now. You can guide it, but you can't let go. Rafi's breath came slow and even. Then I'll stay until it's done. Eno's face twisted. You'll die, Rafi, maybe, he said, but they'll live. The light flared, blinding white. The glacier pulsed like a living ocean. rising into waves that caught the storm's energy and redirected it. The clouds above cracked open, scattering fire into the upper atmosphere. The orbital beam broke apart like shattered glass. Inside the dome, people fell to their knees as the light flooded through the ice. For the first time in days, there was warmth. The hum softened into something almost peaceful. Enno looked at Rafi, who stood still in front of the console, hands outstretched, eyes burning with blue light. His voice came faintly now, not from his mouth, but from everywhere. The walls, the floors, the air. It's calm now, he said. It understands. The storm outside faded to a soft, golden haze. The glacier stopped glowing, its light retreating back into stillness, and then Rafi collapsed. Enno caught him just before he hit the floor. The glow faded from his skin, leaving frost where it had been. His heartbeat was faint but steady. Outside, the sky cleared for the first time since the colony had been built. The director's final message played through the comms, her voice now wholly human again. The storm is over. The glacier has stopped moving. We are safe, for now. Enno looked out the window. The ice stretched endlessly, silent once more. But deep beneath, faint light. The morning after the storm looked unreal. The sky above the colony was clear for the first time in months, washed pale gold by the rising sun. The ice plains shimmered like glass, perfectly still, perfectly silent. No hum in the walls, no tremor underfoot. For a brief moment, it looked as if the world had finally stopped breathing. Captain Enno walked through the shattered corridors of Habitat B. The air was sharp with the scent of burnt metal and ozone. Half the systems were offline, half frozen. But the colony still stood, against every possible rule of physics. The reactor had survived. The glacier had not melted. Somehow, the impossible had become mercy. He stopped at the calm deck door. It was half buried under fallen panels, and beyond it, Rafi lay motionless on the floor, a thin layer of frost clinging to his skin. Enno knelt beside him, brushing ice crystals from his face. Rafi's pulse was faint but steady. The monitors around him flickered with patterns of blue light, like heartbeat rhythms made of electricity. Still fighting, Enno muttered. Of course you are. He heard footsteps. The director entered quietly, her uniform torn, her left arm wrapped in a bandage. She looked older now, or maybe just smaller, as if something inside her had burned away. Is he alive? She asked. Barely, Enno said. Whatever he did, it linked him to the ice. The energy wave stopped when his heart rate did. You understand what that means? The director nodded slowly. The glacier didn't die. It adapted. It used him to learn restraint. Enno looked at her, disbelief heavy in his eyes. You're telling me that thing, that alien, understands mercy now? Not mercy, she said quietly. It understands him. They stood in silence, watching the faint blue pulse rise and fall on the monitor beside Rafi's body. It matched his heartbeat perfectly. Every few seconds, the lights across the colony flickered in time with it, as though the glacier itself was breathing with him. Wake him, Enno said. He deserves to see what he saved. The director hesitated. He's still connected. Forcing him back too soon. Could? Rafi's eyes opened. The light that flickered in them wasn't natural, but it wasn't alien either. It was something between. The calm, deep blue of glacial light filtered through memory. He blinked, slow and dazed, then whispered, Is it over? The director stepped forward. Yes, the ship's gone. The storm dissipated. The ice is stable. Rafi sat up weakly, his gaze distant. No, it's not gone. It's quiet, listening. Enno crouched beside him. You're still linked to it, aren't you? Rafi smiled faintly. Not linked, shared. It knows what I know now. What loss feels like. What fear is. What it means to protect someone instead of consuming them. The director folded her arms. Then it's learned empathy. Rafi looked at her, eyes still faintly glowing. Not learned, borrowed. It's not human. It never will be. But for now, it's human enough. Outside, the light over the glacier shimmered softly. The air felt warmer, not by temperature, but by weight, like the world itself had exhaled. Rafi stood unsteadily. The miners, he said. The ones it took. Are they gone? The director motioned toward the main window. Come see. They walked to the dome's edge. The glacier stretched out in silence. Then, as the sunlight hit it just right, faint shapes appeared beneath the ice, silhouettes, frozen mid-step, not trapped, preserved, each one glowing faintly, almost peacefully. They're still in there, Enno said. Not alive, but not gone. Rafi nodded. It's keeping them. It remembers them. Maybe that's what it does. It holds what the world can't. He turned to the director. You should tell corporate the truth. Her expression hardened. And tell them what? That the thing they tried to destroy is now the reason we're alive? That it learned to feel? She shook her head. They'd send another ship with bigger guns. Rafi's jaw tightened. Then we tell them nothing. We bury the truth with the ice. Enno looked at both of them. And if it wakes again? Rafi's eyes drifted back to the glacier. Then it won't need us to teach it what being human means. It'll remember. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the wind brushing across the dome, a sound that now felt strangely familiar, almost like breathing. Then, somewhere deep beneath the ice, a pulse echoed, faint, steady, almost like a heartbeat. The monitors across the colony lit up with a brief flicker of blue, just once, then went still. Rafi smiled faintly. It's saying goodbye, the director frowned. Or good night. As the sun rose higher, melting frost from the dome, the colony came back to life. People stepped outside for the first time in weeks, blinking against the brightness. Children laughed, chasing thin waves of light that danced across the ice. None of them knew the truth, that the glacier beneath their feet had listened, learned, and nearly become one of them. Rafi stood apart from the others, watching the horizon. He felt the echo inside him, faint, but warm. It wasn't control. It wasn't invasion. It was memory. The ice carried his thoughts like ripples across a still lake. Somewhere in that vast frozen mind, a reflection of him would remain. Enno approached, holding out a thermal flask. You going to tell them what really happened? Rafi took it, shaking his head. No, let them think it was a miracle. Enno smiled. Maybe it was. They stood side by side, watching the light stretch across the glacier. As the sun climbed higher, the director's voice came through the comms, calm, steady, almost human again. Attention all personnel. Power restored. Communication systems online. Effective immediately. We will rebuild. Her words echoed across the dome, mixing with the hum of the colony, and beneath it, deep in the glacier, another voice hummed back in the same rhythm. Not words, not sound, just feeling. Rafi listened with his eyes closed. It wasn't calling him anymore, only thanking him. He smiled. You're welcome, he whispered. The wind carried his voice across the ice, and for a heartbeat, just one, the glacier shimmered in reply. A pulse of light that faded gently into stillness for the first time in human history. To worlds, one of